Hey there, and welcome to That Bond Show, a That Nerdy Site show and the internet's #1 James Bond rewatch show, hosted by two guys named Logan and Trevor. Probably. Join us as each week we dive through a new Bond movie from Dr. No to No Time to Die. I'm one of your hosts, Logan Wilkinson, and joining me, as always, is my Phoenix son, Trevor Starkey.
The bubbles tickle my Tchaikovsky.
Yeah. Yes, I'm very excited for this one. This week, we are, of course, doing A View to a Kill, the 14th Bond film, which was released May 22nd of 1985 in San Francisco, a rare Bond film that premiered earlier in the US than the UK. Its UK premiere was June 13th. Trevor, we're officially in your lifetime now.
I was 2 months old, yeah.
1985 here.
Which makes me realize there have been 4 different Bonds in my lifetime.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah, I've only had 2 in my lifetime. Granted, the 6-year break partially explains that.
Yeah.
You just got Roger Moore at the end. Running through the cast and crew, we of course have Roger Moore back for his 7th and final time as James Bond here in A View to a Kill. We've got Tanya Roberts, who I always identify as Donna's mom from that 70s show.
I couldn't place her while watching it, and then I looked at the IMDb afterwards, and I was like, oh yeah, that is Donna's mom. Yep. Just like
Stacey Sutton,
20 years older or whatever it was.
Yeah. We've got Christopher Walken as Max Zorin, Grace Jones as Mayday, Patrick McNee becoming the 4th person from the Avengers TV series to make appearance in the Bond film series as Sir Godfrey, Patrick Bashaw as Scarbine, I would go, or Scarpine, David Yip as Chuck Lee, and then kind of running through some of the regulars, we've got Wallaby Gray as Dr. Carl Mortner, Dolph Lundgren in his first ever on-screen appearance as a KGB henchman. I just had to give him a shout-out. And in the old stalwarts here of Desmond Llewellyn as Q, Lois Maxwell as Moneypenny, Walter Goethel as General Gogol, Jeffrey Keane as Frederick Gray, and last but not least, Robert Brown as M. And then, of course, A View to a Kill was the 3rd Bond film to be directed in a row by John Glenn. A lot of stuff there. Hopping into the Blast from the Past section, the president still Ronald Reagan, and the prime minister is still Margaret Thatcher. Like I said a few weeks ago, get used to those 2 names. This is the first Bond movie, as we alluded to, of Trevor's life. He was all of 2 months old when it came out in the US. I didn't put it in the doc, but it is also the first Bond movie in which my parents were officially married. They were married in between Octopussy and A View to a Kill. The highest grossing movie continues to be an excellent movie. The last few movies have all been really good ones. The highest grossing movie of the year was Back to the Future, which may very well be close to a perfect movie. The week before was Return of the Jedi. A few weeks before that, we had Star Wars. We're on a really good run of highest grossing movies at this point in time. And continuing sort of in what the Beatles were doing section, Michael Jackson purchased the rights to most of the Beatles' catalog for $47 million in a stunning turn of events for Paul McCartney, who first mentioned to Michael Jackson that they were up for bid. The kind of infamous story that Paul McCartney always tells is he phoned Michael Jackson about McCartney's intention to buy back his catalog of Beatles music. And Michael Jackson jokingly, Paul McCartney thought, said, I'm going to buy that. And then at the auction, he very much made up on his offer, which, as you might imagine, caused quite the fracture in their friendship afterwards. No more Ebony and Ivory songs after that. In the trivia section, Roger Moore, at 57 years old in this movie, would set the record for the oldest James Bond appearance of any actor, and by a good few years. In honor of this, I had this idea a few weeks ago. I thought I'd run through some fun numbers to kind of figure out how old everyone else would be when they hit lucky number 57 and how far it would have taken them out. Sean Connery would have turned 57 as Bond in 1987, 2 years after Moore, and 16 years after his last 007 appearance in Diamonds Are Forever. And for some added fun, 20 5 years after his first appearance as James Bond, Sean Connery would have turned 57. George Lazenby.
So how old was he then when he did the unofficial Never Say Never Again?
And Never Say Never Again,
53?
he would have been 53, yeah. Because Sean Connery's easy because he was born in a 0 year. So he's born in 1930, yeah. So he'd have been 53 in that. So even there, he still would have had 4 more years to go before he would have even hit Roger Moore's mark. Lazenby would have turned 57 in 1996, 27 years after his one and only Bond film. Particularly enjoyed that one. Timothy Dalton would have turned 57 in 2003, 14 years after his last appearance as the character. Pierce Brosnan would have hit 57 in 2010, 8 years after he left the role. And finally, Daniel Craig, who is the only other actor to ever have even one appearance as Bond in his 50s, compared to Moore's 4. He will hit 57 in 2025, here 3 years from now. Speaking to the movie directly, A View to a Kill has the lowest Rotten Tomato critic score of any film in the series, clocking in at a score of 38, 1 point lower than The Man with the Golden Gun's 39, which is an absolute travesty. Speaking of Rotten Tomatoes, Roger Moore's 7-film run came out to an average score of 56.71 on Rotten Tomatoes, the lowest of any actor, 4 points lower than Pierce Brosnan's run as Bond, which in itself is a travesty that his is so low. Although only appearing briefly, as we alluded to earlier, this movie is Dolph Lundgren's first on-screen role, playing General Gogol's KGB bodyguard, Vince, who is definitely not named in the movie. He landed the position because he was...
I think
what was that?
I think Gogol calls him out by name.
Does he?
I think so.
I mean, maybe he does. I don't know. I always just say there's Dolph Lundgren. I don't really think about anything else in the scene. He landed the position because he was dating Grace Jones at the time of filming and was conveniently on set when director John Glenn realized he quickly needed someone to fill in as a simple gun-wielding bodyguard. 1985 would be a particularly good year for Dolph Lundgren because he'd also appear as the main bad guy, Ivan Drago, in Rocky IV in the same year. So a hell of a debut year for him. In his DVD commentary for the film, Roger Moore said that of the 7 Bond films in which he starred, this one, A View to a Kill, was his least favorite. He didn't like the increased violence, and he felt he was getting too old for the part. He's right on one of the two things. The song by Duran Duran is the first, and to date, only Bond song to ever hit #1 on the U.S. charts. So I particularly enjoyed.
I just want to weigh in on that. Like, as I was listening to this song, I was like, this is a song in my lifetime that I've never heard. And then, like, the main title theme by Duran Duran came up, and I was like, oh, that's right. Like, when Jarrett was on, you guys talked about, like, Duran Duran was going to come on and do one of these in a little bit. And then when I saw that, like, oh, this was, like, #1 on the charts, I was like, oh, this, like, was a flash in the pan, like, #1. And then, yeah, it never, like, in my consciousness, this is not a song I ever remember hearing before.
I think part of that, too, in Duran Duran's case is that, like, if you're a radio station from, like, 1990 onwards, right, like, after Duran Duran's hit it, and you're going to play a Duran Duran song, there are bigger hits you can play instead of this one. It's kind of the thing.
Yeah, it's the same with, like, MTV, which is where I would have largely heard or seen Duran Duran growing up kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm sure I saw Hungry Like a Wolf a ton of times.
Yeah, absolutely.
Versus, like, never hearing this one.
Especially thanks to Hungry Like a Wolf's appearance in either Shrek 1 or 2, one of the movies. Where are we at? This was a very contentious set, with Roger Moore, Grace Jones, and Tanya Roberts all having complicated relationships with one another, and Moore and Jones's relationship in particular would never repair the breach that occurred while filming this movie. There was a kind of trivia poll I had from IMDb about Roger Moore at, like, a 2016 like ceremony about Bond.
Yeah. If you don't have anything to say nice, don't say anything at all.
Don't say anything at all. In the DVD commentary, he goes into just a little bit, I think, of just being sort of creeped out by Grace Jones. And Grace Jones, in her autobiography, to her credit, kind of said that she maybe went too method in the role and just kind of, like, was just weird to him, like, in between breaks and filming. And Roger Moore, very much not a method actor, didn't appreciate it. continuing in that contentiousness, it carried over to Lois Maxwell, who would make her final appearance in the series to date here. Maxwell pitched both killing off Moneypenny or retiring her character and having her become the new M, which is a story I hear most often. But Broccoli rejected the idea, as he thought audiences wouldn't be ready for the idea of a female M.
Yeah, I saw that trivia and I was like, fuck you, Albert Broccoli. You're just terrible. You and Saltzman are like the ultimate villains of the Bond series.
Little did he know, obviously, a decade later, Judi Dench would go on to do a phenomenal job as the character.
Yeah,
and I think,
I think Lois Maxwell would have as well.
Would have done a great job. I think, it'd have been such a cool relationship too.
Yeah, indeed.
I would have really liked to see that. And I'm disappointed in the way that she kind of got pushed out. The character of Pavlova, a former love interest of Bond, was originally going to be Anya from The Spy Who Loved Me, with Barbara Bach replaying the role. Once Bach declined to return, though, a new character was created for the film.
I saw they was there, because I've seen similar notes on a couple of these movies where like they reached out to bring her back for a thing and she declined. Mm-hmm. Like, did she just not ever want to do another Bond, or like was there bad blood there? Do you know?
There's no bad blood to my knowledge. I wonder if it's more of just like she didn't want to come back for a cameo. She would have wanted like a full like another lead character kind of moment. Yeah. Or maybe she just really liked her performance in Spy Who Loved Me, was like, that's it. I don't need to do another one kind of thing. I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one in particular I saw prior to this was like, oh, they thought about bringing her back as like the agent that Gogol was sleeping with in like one of his stupid cameo appearances.
Only, I think. Yeah.
I was like, oh well, yeah, that one would have been terrible. Don't like, already that was like such a weird like way to take the character anyway, to make him like this lecherous sleazebag that I feel like wasn't previously established. So it's like, definitely don't like undermine her character with that, but like this would have been like an interesting, they're both agents on this mission that just happened to kind of coincide.
Yeah,
but then
I really would have liked that as well.
It also would have made her look very inept by the end of it, so I can appreciate not wanting to do that.
Not wanting to come back for that. The final trivia fact that I didn't include in the doc, but is one of my favorite things on this movie, is the kind of, I guess, urban legend, or like kind of recurring myth within the Bond series about Maud Adams making a uncredited cameo appearance in this film. Mm-hmm. You see it happen a lot whenever people talk about it. It's even mentioned in the DVD commentary by Roger Moore himself. Maud Adams is not in this movie. I've done research on this. I've done numerous deep dives, people, including by Calvin Dyson, who does great Bond videos, doing kind of a thing on this. Her boyfriend at the time is in this movie during the fish market scene. You see him very clearly. But Maud Adams herself, whether her scene was cut from the final film or not, she is definitely not in this movie. I've seen more than one frame-by-frame breakdown of the fish market scenes to kind of see the few leading ladies who are kind of teased as possible Maud Adams candidates, and they're either the wrong hair color, the wrong outfits, the wrong whatever. She was on set, but she's not in the final film. So I just wanted to get that out of the way. That takes us to the 0070-second recap. Trevor, are you ready?
Yeah. Look at this. This, like, you somehow made this a pretty short one. So I'm going to say this only looks like maybe 60 seconds.
Okay, let's go. Bond is in Siberia, where he picks up a locket and snowboards away to the Beach Boys, to Trevor's delight. Afterwards, he, M, and Moneypenny go to the horse races and talk about microchips and potential baddie Max Zorin. After seeing Zorin's horse win, Bond goes undercover with Tibbet at a horse auction Zorin is holding. They discover Zorin is drugging his horses. Tibbet goes for a car wash and doesn't return. Bond meets Mayday and Stacy and is chased away. Now in SF, Bond talks to a CIA buddy, discovers geology, breaks into City Hall with Stacy, and escapes in a fire truck. The team head to one of Zorin's mines where he plans to blow up a fault line with all the TNT in the world, apparently. Zorin goes nuts and just starts killing everyone and traps Bond and Mayday in a mine flood, and then gets in the Hindenburg knockoff blimp. Mayday and Bond work together to remove the bomb before it goes off, and Mayday sacrifices herself to save Silicon Valley. Zoran takes Stacy, Bond hops a ride on the blimp's cords, and then there is a fight atop the Golden Gate Bridge. Zoran falls to his death, and Bond and Tracy take a shower.
67 seconds.
I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So my note on the Beach Boys thing.
Yeah, I knew there was gonna be something.
And now he's snowboarding to the Beach Boys. Fuck this whole series to hell.
Yeah. Trevor, how many people were killed?
Let's see. The overall kill count for the film, the final tally, came out to 62, which is shockingly low, largely because the unconfirmed and uncounted is possibly more people inside the mines when Zoran flooded them. So like the mine kill count is like ridiculously low. But does make up for like most of the kills in this movie. Character kills there. Zoran has 44 assigned to him. Scarpine has 6, and Mayday has 5. How many do you think James Bond has?
I think so. Yeah, Bond kills Zoran. In terms of a named character, he doesn't kill Mayday. Obviously, well, actually, Bond might not kill any named characters until the end of the movie, with like Zoran, and then depending on how you want to count it, I guess, like you could argue he kills like the Nazi scientist and Skypine or not, right? Like because he causes it to go up, but doesn't obviously light and then drop the TNT. So that one I'll allow like kind of a question marky area. But I think he only kills those 3 named characters. That'll be my answer.
That is correct. He kills 2 additional unnamed characters at the top of the film in Siberia with when he shoots a flare into the helicopter, killing the pilot and the gunner. But yes, Bond drops Zoran into the bay, and he basically gets a combo kill with Mortner because Mortner is the one who lights the dynamite, but Bond cuts the rope leading to the dynamite blowing up Mortner and Scarpine. So, 3 kills there.
Very nice. Okay, very happy with that.
It's because Mayday goes on a strangle feat. She also kills Akil Aubergine, which strikes me as a definite parody of Hercule Poirot, especially because he has a weird, funky mustache as well.
The French guy.
French investigator who gets killed by a butterfly. Somehow, so they don't really explain how that was a deadly butterfly, but whatever. Fly
in a soup. Trevor, what did you think of A View to a Kill?
I mean, still not good. I'm glad I never have to watch a Roger Moore movie again.
If you don't want to.
This one, no, I'm glad I never have to. I never will. I will never watch a Roger Moore boat. I don't think I'll watch any of the movies that we've gone over ever again. But yeah, I'm glad to leave the Roger Moore era behind. This one didn't annoy me and piss me off as much as some of the last couple have.
I agree.
But it's still not good. It was largely it's fine kind of movie. I think it is significantly elevated by Walken. I think Christopher Walken having a lot of fun with it. It kind of fits the man with the golden gun niche there for me. Grace Jones is imposing and an interesting choice. I don't think she's good at all. I
she's
think
super weird for sure.
I think
it's a very interesting take.
I think she struggles in the acting component of the job, and when they give her things to do is where, like, when she's just there and like menacing, fine, cool, but when she's having to actually like act opposite some of these other people, it's like, oh, this is not great. And I felt I felt a lot of things about this one in that it's hitting on a lot of the same Goldfinger beats and trying to be Goldfinger but not as good. And I made the realization in this one with Stacey Sutton's character, that I hate the damsel in distress or like can't hold their own Bond allies.
Mhm.
And in particular, she was I was like, oh, she is the the precursor to Christmas Eve in this one. She's a
Mm.
scientist who can't do any of the other stuff that like is asked of her in this. Um and so like I hate those versions of
Mm.
the character versus like the competent, formidable, can go toe to toe with Bond. Those ones I much prefer because I think they just have a lot more to offer to their respective films than
Mm.
this one, who is basically just there to be eye candy and uncomfortably in a relationship with pervy old Roger Moore.
Yeah, I think I have always enjoyed A View to a Kill, right? And like even as a kid, I feel like I knew maybe inherently it wasn't great, right? But I've always enjoyed it, right? It's always been one of those films that I think that like kind of slides in, right, like for me at like 10 to like 12, 13 range a lot when I kind of like look back at my rankings. Um, and yeah, like this to me is a quintessential like, is it good? I don't know, but I find it pretty fun, right? Like I think the movie has a good energy and pace to it that has been missing from Roger Moore movies at least since Spy Who Loved Me, right? I think the last three um have really struggled to maintain a consistent pace, right? And even with like how much I liked Octopussy at times, that one I think definitely is maybe a better movie, but pales in terms of just like having lots of stuff happening and being more of an action movie, right? And like this one feels like it was the most influenced by like what was happening around it, right? Like I feel more of like the 80s action movies in this one in ways that I mostly like, right? Like I think A View to a Kill is probably Roger Moore's worst performance as Bond, alongside his performance in Man with a Golden Gun. Right? Like I don't really particularly care for Roger Moore that much in this movie, and he looks his age, and it's hampered by the fact that he had like some like cosmetic work done before this movie, so like he just looks even more jarring than he did when we last saw him just 2 years ago. Right? Like he's like got hit even more by age and whatever work he's had done. And so I think he's pretty flat, and I think he's pretty ready to not be James Bond. I think Tanya Roberts is great as Donna's mom. I think she was given not a lot to work with, and I think she does not a lot with it. I think she's probably one of the weaker Bond girls. And yeah, Grace Jones, I think I would have rather her had almost a Odd Job or Jaws as kind of role where she just kind of can be physically imposed but doesn't necessarily have like a lot of lines that she's saying, because I do agree that those are her weakest moments.
Mm-hmm. It's also like just her relationships with everybody throughout the like she's
Are pretty
clearly
weird.
in a relationship with Zorin, and then like when Bond does the whole like Mayday, come back to bed kind of thing, like she has no problem doing that, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
but why? Why was that the choice? Why is that a
And then
character beat?
Zoran just
Yeah, like
throwing her out to die at the end.
yeah, what? Yeah, and then there is that element of like if Zoran hadn't like gone nuts, his plan would have gone off without a hitch.
Yep.
Like if he hadn't betrayed Mayday effectively, like everything would have worked and he would have gotten away in his blimp. A whole bunch of people
Mm-hmm.
would be dead. All the miners still probably be dead. Um,
No.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it was like a weird. It was a weird like third act choice for him to just like
Yeah.
start unloading on everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a beat where I was like, oh yeah, this probably has like a pretty high kill count because he's just unloading
Mowing people down. Yeah.
on all of his little minions and like unnecessarily so. But okay,
Yeah.
whatever. They've established multiple times through here that he's psychotic, so
Yeah.
it
It works.
at least
Yeah.
it at least isn't coming completely out of nowhere. But yeah, it isn't.
Yeah,
It clearly isn't in his best interest.
Yeah, I think Christopher Walken's great. That's sort of where I was going to bridge to. Like, I think he has so much fun with this performance, right? And even down to like as he's like getting to fall to his death, he just sits like laughing almost maniacally, like he's a Joker as he like goes to fall. Like, yeah, like he's just I think such a magnetic personality, even at this point in his career, that yeah, he's so captivated in every scene, and his slightly kind of like he's doing almost like a proto Joker in a lot of ways, and like I find that kind of interesting. His kind of like uncanny laugh he does at times. He's kind of doing his villainous monologues, and the smiles and the quirks he has.
Shout out to him also being the first Oscar winner in a Bond movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he had won
right?
for The Deer Hunter prior to this.
Yep. Obviously, because he got his before Connery got his. And so he is great in this movie, right? And I think this is sort of a movie that is better than its parts for me, right? Like, I don't really like a lot of the individual performances outside of Walken. I think a lot of them were either fine or not good. The story beats work or don't work for me at kind of varying degrees of levels, but like, I really do just kind of always have a good time with this movie, right? Like, it's got dumb moments. The Beach Boy thing is silly.
The car chase that led me to say, I swear to God, I'm watching an Austin Powers movie, where he bounces off a bus, then he loses the top of his car, then he loses the back half of his car, and still continues to drive on. I was like, what is this? What nonsense is this?
Scene's infamous also for being one of just, I think, the most egregious examples of like, that's not Roger Moore in any of this. And like, it's just like, that's just straight up another man's face. They definitely had weird shit like that, or like the same thing where like the KGB agent that Bond was in the jacuzzi with, when she like escapes with the tape and like gets in the car, and then like they drive off and it's her talking to Jonah Gogo, but like when she gets in that car, it is very clearly just a completely different man. And it's like, could they not get him for that one shot before they drove off? Like, it's such a bizarre scene that like I didn't really notice ever before, but now my 14th viewing or whatever, I'm like, that's not him. And yeah, like there's a lot of that. There's a lot of like Roger Moore just, I think, being old and not able to do a lot of shit. But like, I don't know, like the movie has a charm to it. Like it has a similar energy, I think it is a better Diamonds Are Forever to me, right? Like sort of like it is goofy and silly, but it's just really pretty fun all the way through. And like, I think the movie's better than Diamonds Are Forever, so that helps out. I think Max Zorin is just a fun, great villain. I think Christopher Walken has like an enjoyable time with it. And like, I really like Duran Duran, and I like them in this movie and their music, and they use it a lot in this movie. They are not shy about it. And so, yeah, I had a really enjoyable experience with it. And, I'm glad that there wasn't really too long of a like post the bad guy is dead sequence like we've had some of the other movies prior to this, where like there's like, here's another 15 minutes that's not probably needed here. It's like, Christopher Walken's dead, here's one last scene, now we're done. It's like, all right, great, I can live with that.
Yeah, I mean, this time around they did it of like, let's kill the henchmen in kind of order.
Yeah.
I guess a little bit of, they still had a couple henchmen that they need to blow up still. And they do that in the most absurd, like, why the hell was there dynamite on that blimp?
Yeah.
What is the point of that? But yeah, it was like, okay, they can wrap that all up before leaving the Golden Gate
in
Bridge.
like one
fine,
sequence,
no problem there. But yeah, like having Mayday like sacrifice herself earlier, like helped kind of, I think, solve that issue, because in other movies it would have been like, oh, Mayday's coming back for revenge, after Soren dies or whatever. But yeah, like there was, like, again, it didn't drive me like angry to rage, but there was a lot of just like, I don't understand why they make the choices they make in these movies. And whatever, we're beyond it now. I can kind of leave Roger Moore's era behind, all that stuff, and just be like, whatever, fine. Like, I mean, like one example of that I will say is like, they clearly had the idea of, we want the climactic thing to be at the Golden Gate Bridge. So how are we going to get everybody there? Well, we're going to have him fly a blimp there. How are we going to get Bond there? Oh, he's just going to hang on a rope for like miles as they fly. Not try and climb the rope to get up to the blimp. He's just going to hang there from Silicon Valley all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge. And yeah, let's have him like hit something at the Transamerica building too. Sure, let's do that. Let's like, and it was just like, what was Bond's plan in jumping onto that rope if he wasn't going to try and like climb up it? Like, was he just hoping he would weigh them down? Like, it just, the internal logic of the movie just made me angry at times, but not to the extent of some of the last movies. I will say that.
Yeah, I think I find there would be something endearing about A View to Kill, right? Like I like the fact that, I think we each agree the Roger Moore era is fairly up or down, to put it mildly, and I think they work best for me when like Roger can just kind of have fun with it, and like this felt like one where like Roger may not have had fun with it, but the movie's having fun, and the movie kind of like isn't taking itself too seriously, and the movie can just kind of like let fun, cool things happen and sequences happen. And I think it's better off for that, right? Like it's sort of, again, going back to like my two rules of a Bond movie. Like, are you good? Yes, great, we're done. If not, are you fun, right? And like, I'd much rather watch A View to a Kill again than Moonraker again, or even like with how much more I liked Fear Eyes Only this time around, I'd rather watch A View to a Kill than Fear Eyes Only, right? Or Man with the Golden Gun, or those kind of things. And so, yeah, I think it did the second part of it well. Like one thing I find interesting about A View to a Kill is how much time Bond is undercover, right? Like this is probably the most amount of time Bond is like assuming different aliases since On Her Majesty's Secret Service, probably, where he's like undercover for like the entire second act.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was kind of an interesting aspect of like them focusing more on like the, I guess, like undercover spy side of it, in that way, right? Like he doesn't deliver his "I'm Bond, James Bond" line until really late, but does like other versions of it.
Yeah,
which I thought was like kind of like a fun like wink and a nod kind of thing.
And the I'm Stock, James Stock, haha.
Yeah,
because it's a Stocks and Bond joke. Got it. Huh.
Yeah,
Clever. Financial Times pun. Neat.
but like I thought, yeah, like I enjoyed those moments, right? And like I think San Francisco is a really cool setting, just in general. We each love San Francisco, and so I love to see the city there, and kind of they got so much of the city, they get to do so much shit there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's always great. And like
reading the trivia of like Dianne Feinstein was the mayor at the time, obviously now senator for California. It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
And like the notion of like, oh, that was an abuse of political power, because she's going and gallivanting around with like Bond and the production crew and getting to do these fun little things because she loved Roger Moore as Bond kind of thing. And it's like,
she's a big Roger Moore fan.
How, like, clearly ethics just has never really been a thing that politics has cared about.
But yeah, so I like San Francisco a lot. I really like that location. And yeah, like I don't know, like this it's a very 80s Bond movie in a lot of ways. Like I wish pretty often we could have had a like different younger Bond in this movie, because I think it would have been even stronger if we had like Timothy Dalton start here instead of the next movie, or if we had gotten like Pierce Brosnan here kind of thing. Like I think that could have been like to its benefit more than almost anything else. Because I think Roger Moore is just kind of, he's pretty faded out at this point, and to the man's credit, he's almost 60 years old. Like he's can't be doing James Bond forever. But yeah, on the whole, I mean I really enjoyed my time with it. Like I think it is a consistent, like, yeah, I'm enjoying this. There are moments that I roll my eyes, right? Like especially when they're at like City Hall and Tanya or Stacy's basically doing her best like Kate Capshaw impression from Temple of Doom, just screaming, "James, James, don't leave me, James." But like for the most part,
her credit, like, or to her credit, James also just didn't tell her his plan of like, hey, hang out. I'm gonna go up there. I'm gonna get something to save you. I'll be like, don't worry, I'm not abandoning you here.
Yeah.
Any the slightest bit of communication would have helped in that regard.
Sure, yeah. But like, yeah, like I think there's so many scenes that I enjoy, right? Like I like pretty much everything at Zoran's like horse auction thing. I always find Bond and Tibbet's relationship like really funny. I like to think of like them playing the recorder.
Yeah, they basically picked up that clue from Kananga.
Yeah, and I really liked it. And like their whole dynamic is fun. Like the scene of like Bond being like, go take the car for a wash as he just got done like hand washing and like throwing the bucket on there is like a funny gag. So like I think most of that sequence works really well for me, and I really enjoy it. And like the scene of them all in the blimp having the business meeting, right? And like dropping, does anyone else want to drop out as the guy's like tumbling to his death, and the thing is like a funny like
I
that's
thought
a classic Bond moment
I
kind of
thought that
thing.
was a fun way to reveal that they were in a blimp. Because I feel
Yeah,
like I don't think that gets established beforehand. It's just like
sure.
Zorin in a meeting with all these people, and it very much is again this like Goldfinger reminiscent kind of like sequence,
Yeah.
and you know that this guy is not going to have a good fate. So when she basically like sends him out and he drops to his death, it's like, oh, they are doing this flying in a blimp somewhere. Okay, cool. That's a
Yeah.
fun twist on it, and the fact that they didn't set it up that they were in a blimp, I think makes that a better moment.
Yeah.
It definitely like led me to confusion of like, okay, well then how did Bond know to get to San Francisco? Like how like suddenly we're in San Francisco
Yeah.
from a French like estate where the auction was happening or whatever. Why did suddenly everybody just like leave and go to San Francisco? I that didn't get explained at all, but whatever. We still
Yeah.
had this cool moment of like
Right.
this, evil mastermind plotting meeting happening in a blimp over
Yeah.
California.
So I enjoyed that, right? Like I think for me, and we'll get more into this when we get to like the final review, like I do think if you break up the Roger Moore run, right, into like great, good, bad movies, right? And I think really only Live and Let Die and Spy Who Loved Me are like great movies of his that kind of really work almost on every level. And then you get to movies that I think are just like bad, right? Like Moonraker and Man with the Golden Gun in particular. And then you kind of have, for me at least, like this kind of like mid tier of like okay to goodish with like Octopussy, Furious Only. I definitely think this is in that goodish range, right? Like I think it's sort of on even keel with Octopussy in terms of like which I like more. But I think it's fun. I think it's enjoyable. Trevor, any final thoughts before we kind of wrap into the next few sections here?
I think the last thing I wanted to give a shout out to or call out to is I noticed the product placement so much more in this movie than in prior movies. And in particular, I took a few notes. When Bond gets pushed into the lake, he's sucking air from a Michelin tire. That is very clearly like Michelin is saving Bond's life in this moment. So that was an interesting. And then just on that note, as a side tangent, I saw a one of the trivia facts of like a Mythbusters episode basically
Mythbusters, right? Yeah.
tried to do that and just couldn't. So it's like, no, that's busted kind of thing. But then like Bond uses a sharper image card to like break and enter into Sutton's house.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait,
Yeah.
so is Q just outsourcing his gadgets to the sharper image now? Is kind of what
Right.
like that look made. And then the last
Right.
one I took a note of here was Agent Lee gets into his Ford truck, the perfect place for someone to hide in the back and murder you. Like that's
Yeah,
a
right.
weird bit of product placement for Ford there. I don't think they probably wanted that connection made. But yeah, it's just kind of like label like very
Sure.
prominent in your face, and there's been like a couple instances of that, but I think like this was the one where like it was like not as egregious as like Transformers levels of product placement kind of thing, but it's getting close and it's getting up there. There was another like there's also like a very clear Chevron gas station sign that like crashed down and in the fire truck chase, but I was like, I don't really have a fun joke for that one, but it was like that's clearly another bit of product placement that they're incorporating there. So yeah, it was just like a weird like how much, and maybe there's an element of all of these things are American, so maybe I've just missed some of the product placement in other things because it's been
Sure.
a more European centric
British,
kind of settings and stuff like that. So maybe that's an element here, but like even that like the Michelin tires thing is happening over in France. So like yeah.
I know for me, I actually think a few movies back is like the series' most egregious example of this. Because at least these are done in more natural ways versus in Moonraker, where they're in the like ambulance and they're going like up that hill, and it's just like billboard, billboard, billboard,
Mm.
billboard, but they're like driving past. It's like that's just like them putting billboards with of advertisements in the thing that's like less like natural than like, oh, here's a tire, here's a that kind of thing.
Fair enough. Admittedly, we didn't really, I don't think we covered it on that episode, but during that ambulance sequence is where I Googled, or where I went to like IMDb and went to that actress and saw that she was in Death in the Nile back in the 70s or whatever. And so
Shit.
like I was not really paying attention to the movie
All of it.
for maybe the visuals of Billboard.
Fair enough.
I was just like, oh my God, this is just such a terrible movie. Let me just looking at my phone, going through this, and then coming back by the end.
Fair enough. Trevor, any QLab gadgets other than the weird like robot thing in this?
I mean, they have a new way of detecting bugs, I guess, and they they had a whole plan
and
for
it's inside
for
the shaver.
that.
It's a cool it's a cool and neat way to do it.
Trying to think.
Zoran's got like the gadget to figure out who Bond is, but that's obviously not a Q gadget.
Yeah. And I saw that there was like, a trivia thing basically saying like a CIA person was like, do we have this technology? We should get this technology.
Yeah.
So inspired by Bond for facial recognition software that,
Absolutely.
runs our everyday these days. Yeah, I don't think there was again, not a Q gadget thing, but the like the reveal of the blimp coming out of the the construction trailer was that was a neat little facet. But I don't think anything really jumped out. And and obviously Q's like robot thing that he like that gets introduced there at the beginning and then comes back his little robot drone at the end. It's like, oh, like because it would have just been a very weird call if like that just was something that he was driving around M's office for this meeting, if it hadn't come back by the end of the film. But it's also still weird that he's just driving it from a Winnebago outside, like he's just spying on Sutton's house
instead of just like walking into the house and being like, "Hey, you here?
Yeah,
you can't find Bond."
Yep.
Fair enough. Trevor, that takes us into the final review for the movie. What were your thoughts on A View to a Kill?
I mean, yeah, like I said, not great, not infuriating. Still like just kind of a bleh movie. It just didn't really it ended the Roger Moore era on a whimper, on a fart kind of thing, as opposed to like on a high note. I don't know. Like it's interesting going back like those few weeks and being like, after The Spy Who Loved Me, being like, maybe Moore is a better Bond than Connery. I still think both of them are bad. So like I don't know if I would. I think probably Moore has more bad movies to him, but that's also because he just stayed in the role longer and was already too old for the role for a lot of what he was doing anyway. So I think like by default, maybe Connery gets the edge slightly for me. But that's still like damning with faint praise. So as far as like my overall ranking, probably going to throw this just above Dr. No. Like I had more fun with Diamonds Are Forever it like embracing its campiness.
Sure.
Whereas this one still is in that like it's very campy for certain parts of this movie, but then other parts not at all. And so yeah, it was just kind of like it's whatever. It is like the middle of the row for my rankings.
Ahead of Dr. No though.
Yeah. It's like because it was very much I was looking at it, I was like, okay, well I like this better than Octopussy because I did not like Octopussy. Did I like this better than Dr. No? I was like, Dr. No, like both of them are kind of in that like it's a bland movie kind of thing, and I think this probably has a little bit more entertaining things just because they hadn't like identified a formula for Bond
out, right?
With Dr. No. So Dr. No just kind of exists in its own little like category of stuff. But like if I were to, suffer through watching through these again, I guess I would probably have a little bit more fun with this because I think Soren or Max Zorin is a better. It's also weird, like Max Zorin and Max Shrek. I kept almost wanting to call him Shrek, in honor of his Batman Returns character that he would play in a few more years' time. But yeah, I think he elevates it as a little bit above, because again, I thought the Doctor No villain was just a nothing character. So at least the Christopher Walken aspect of it improves it over that for me.
Okay, yeah, it's fair enough. That just reminded me before
I was like, wait, we didn't have villains corner in here,
no.
did
we? Dropping it right now.
Yeah.
Where do you want to rank Max Zorin?
I mean, like, I kind of want to put him up in like Scaramanga territory.
I like him a lot too.
Yeah,
I liked him more than Kananga. Right, so in terms of like main villains like that Goldfinger, Scaramanga, Blowfield 2.0,
yeah,
I think I like Blowfield 2.0 more than Scaramanga, and I think you like Scaramanga more than Blowfield 2.0.
Yeah.
And so like I think I like Max more than Scaramanga. I don't know if I like him more than Blowfield. Is sort of where I'm at, but like definitely no lower than he's definitely in that 2, 3, 4 range for me.
Yeah, I like him, and I think he has a more interesting plot, I guess, than Scaramanga. And it is just like he's foiled by his own petard, really. Like his own psychosis ends up leading to Grace Jones being able to lift Bond and the detonator out of the cavern and whatnot. So but like any time he's on screen, it's a fun, engaging sequence. So I would probably put him over. I mean, honestly, I probably like him more than Goldfinger myself. But I get that that's probably going to be a hard sell.
I wish I don't remember the conversation we had in Man with the Golden Gun when we did Scaramanga over Blowfield. I mean, based off the way our ranking is done, I'm totally going to have Max Zorin be number 2, right? Says even though I like Blowfield on Whom Magic Service, I think a little bit more. I like Max Zorin more than Scaramanga, so I'm going to have him second for sure.
Cool.
I have no issues with that. Again, Christopher Walken is great. He's just kind of playing. He's basically doing the Joker before Jack Nicholson brought it to the big screen, and it's fantastic for anyone who was concerned about that. So let me now dive into my final ranking.
I don't know, like, because you also usually have a musical moments section. We talked about it already a little bit, but I don't know.
Duran's great.
Yeah.
It's so I really like it.
I've forgotten if we rank the songs at all at this point.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Let me pull that up as well and copy and paste that in here. But yeah, I mean, like, did you like the music?
No, like it didn't do anything for me. I think Duran has better songs, and I didn't like it.
This isn't one of them.
This was another, like, this is one of many of the Bond songs that's like, how the fuck how the hell do we do how do we write a song where we work A View to a Kill in there? And they barely do it, but they clearly, like, it's I think I felt as listening to it, they had this other song called Dancing in the Fire or whatever, and then they were like, well, let's use that, but how can we make it Bond? Let's throw in one line that references A View to a Kill. Cool, done. But it's mostly going to be Dancing in a Fire. And it, like, so it doesn't even feel like it serves the movie really well in that regard.
Sure. Here we go. I think that I like it. I like when they get kind of fun and weird. And I think that, it is a very 80s song in a Bond movie, and like that's sort of cool, and that's sort of like unique among the series, and so I vibe with it, right? Like looking at our list of Live and Let Die, Nobody Does It Better, From Spy Who Loved Me, Goldfinger, You'll Live Twice, Diamonds, On Her Majesty's Secret Service, For Your Eyes Only, Man with the Golden Gun, Moonraker, Octopussy, Thunderball. Right, like I like this more than all of them at least through. I mean, at least from Diamonds Down, I like it more than those. Even if it is just kind of like, because even if it, like, I guess my thing is that like, even if this is just like a generic '80s pop song, '80s pop is great, and so it's that thing for me of like, I like '80s pop more than most ballads, I would say, right? And so I would probably put it like number 4 or 5, right? Like lower than Goldfinger, but like maybe ahead of You Only Live Twice, right below it. Is still where I would put it, even if it's just even if it's just like a 780s pop synth track, that's still fun to me.
Yeah, I mean, like I defer to you on this because I'm not typically a music guy, and B, yeah, this was like this will ultimately be in the completely forgettable
Sure.
camp alongside For Your Eyes Only, Man with the Golden Gun, like everything. Like the only reason, like I would put this below On Her Majesty's Secret Service, honestly, because at least that one, like the Louis Armstrong song in that one was like, like resonant to the tones of the and the themes of the film. But other than that, it's just like, oh, I will not remember this song. I already barely remember this song. Like, as I said, like Dancing in the Fire, I'm like, I think that was it. I think that was the song that really is what they have or something like that. But I could be wrong on that too. So yeah, it's very much like it was a whatever.
Sure. In terms of me, I would probably give this like a 6.5 to 7, right? Like I think it is pretty close to the definition of like okay to good territory for me. Again, like I said kind of earlier, kind of in spite of itself, right? Like, I think a lot of the individual pieces I don't like as much, but like they come together to kind of make something I mostly enjoy, right? Like there are eye roll moments, there's dumb stuff in it, there's goofiness in it, but I mostly find it endearing here versus more frustrating. And I think a lot of that is because they don't commit to going full camp like Diamonds Are Forever, but they do commit to, I think, just being like, what is the most fun thing we can do? And we'll figure out how to get there just to get to like the next fun thing. And I sort of enjoy that, right? And so like I look at my list, right? And the way I've described it, right? Like it's not a bad movie. It's not a great movie. So it's sort of in that middle range for me, right? And like I think ultimately, after I wasn't sure going into this podcast where I would rank it, right, in comparison to like Octopussy, but like I do think I like it more than Octopussy. I do think this is probably my third favorite, my third favorite Roger Moore movie. And so it's a question of like, all right, like On Her Majesty's Secret Service is better, Doctor No is probably better, and so then it's a thing for me of like, where do I rank this next to Thunderball, right? And because I think Thunderball is like kind of like the B tier of Connery movies, and I think this is like the B tier of Roger Moore movies. And so like, which one would I rather watch? And it's like, I might have more fun with this. Thunderball might be a little bit better. I like Connery more, obviously. And so like, this is a pretty classic example to me of like either which way I could kind of shake out on it. But ultimately, just for like the fun of it alone, I think I might rank it right below Dr. No and ahead of Thunderball. Because I do enjoy this movie. I do find it fun. There, like, people definitely don't. Again, it is the lowest ranked Rotten Tomatoes thing. I didn't include it in the like trivia fact, but like a lot of outlets have it named as either like the worst or one of like the 4 or 5 worst Bond movies. I don't think it's that, because similar to Diamonds Are Forever to me, like it is still fun even if it's bad, right? And like I'd much rather have that than Moonraker, Man with the Golden Gun, For Your Eyes Only, that are just kind of like, these aren't good and also aren't fun, right? And so I've always kind of been a bit more on the defender side of it, and that holds true here. Having said that, I am definitely ready to leave Roger Moore's era as well. Again, this is my least favorite run of, least favorite era of Bond. And I think watching through these 7 movies again, my mind has been completely unchanged on that. I do think Roger Moore is just like the weakest Bond actor other than Lazenby, who didn't really get a crack at it. And like, it's so funny to look back like 3 or 4 weeks ago to when we were doing The Spy Who Loved Me, where it's like, yeah, like he had a pretty good opening. Like his first three movies, two of them are great, right? Like Live and Let Die and Spy Who Loved Me. And Man with the Golden Gun is truly awful, I think. But the other two are really good. And then it just like, he is a Bond who he signed on to do a 3-movie deal, and I sort of wish he had left it at that. Because if he had, his 3 movies would have been like really well received, I think. And like his Man with the Golden Gun would always be a downbeat, but like the other two would have been really great, and his era would have been viewed differently. And as it is, my thoughts on Roger Moore are largely the same, right? Of like, I think when he cares, he can be really charming and really fun and kind of like playful. And I think it is such a fine line between like being kind of, go with the flow and cool, and being lazy and kind of laissez-faire and not caring. And I think that just kind of infected a lot of his later movies, unfortunately. And I also think that like, for whatever reason, from like Moonraker through Fear Only and Octopussy, and it's not really as much an issue here, but like those like next 3 movies after Spy Who Loved Me, like they were just like, what if we made really bland movies for like 3 films in a row and like didn't do fun things? And that's just sort of a shame. And that's why like this is also the era that I watch least, because like they're just not that fun. Like even if they're not bad, like I don't think Fear Only and Octopussy are like terrible movies. It's just like, is there a lot to like go back and watch again that makes them like fun though? And at least View to Kill has that for me. But that is where we will have it. That is the show. Otherwise, get it out of the way early. If you like what you heard, you can go over to youtube.com/thatnerdysite, where you should already be on this YouTube exclusive series. Hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell notification to get notified when a new video goes live. Monday through Saturday, we have new videos going up each and every day. You can also go over to thatnerdysite.com to check out all the latest written content, reviews, features we have going up on that site. In addition, of course, to all the podcasts also going live on That Nerdy Site. You can go find Trevor at Trevor J. Starkey on the internet. Trev, anything that you want to plug a shout out?
I guess just give a shout out to the written reviews that go alongside these. Go check out Logan's reviews over on thatnerdysite.com. Basically, each episode has a corresponding review, so you can get more of his thoughts that we didn't cover, that we missed on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You can go find me at LeftyLoggy, at LeftyLoggy, Loggy on the internet. I will give a shout out to That D+. This will come out either at the end of March or right after the end of March. And so we've just had the whole March month mapped out. Be sure to check out our thoughts on West Side Story, which I personally am very excited to watch, as well as the first episode of Moon Knight. And we also will have covered Jungle Cruise as well. So lots of good and other stuff in between. It's a big, long month. But go check out all of those episodes. It should be a lot of fun. In addition to that, you can go over to That Nerdy Site, at That Nerdy Site, I should say, on Twitter to go find the main channel there. They've got lots of good drops every single day of the week happening there. We tweet out lots of fun stuff. Otherwise, to close it out full circle, that is the show. Thank you for listening. If you like what you heard, be sure to come back next week when that Bond show will return with the Living Daylights.